A grand jury will shortly convene in the Diddy investigation, and it could lead to really serious criminal charges against this disgraced mogul.
Which would be the very first criminal charges that Diddy has faced in all of this that has been going on for the last few months. And it is looking like the feds are really, so you understand, they don't convene a grand jury until they've got their ducks in a row. So this means, if you're Diddy, this means that they at least have spoken to enough people that they believe they have enough evidence for an indictment. Now, we'll see whether they do.
I should say that there is another scenario, and we're going to be talking to a guy who knows his stuff in this area. But there's another scenario. There's such a thing as an investigative grand jury, where what they do is they want to see what the evidence is, but they can't necessarily call all the witnesses they want because the witnesses don't have to cooperate with prosecutors.
Right.
So what they do in an investigative grand jury is they subpoena them, and they're required to talk, and then the prosecutors can use the information to say, do we have a charge here or not, or do we want to go forward? So that's the other way of looking at this.
There was a report in CNN, though, that says that they have, they being the federal prosecutors, have interviewed several witnesses, that they have interviewed several witnesses in preparation for this grand jury, which makes me feel like they are very far down the road in their investigation.
I think this is probably why they're doing it. Now, they will bring in some of the accusers who have already come forward publicly. They may bring in others that haven't, but I would be stunned if Cassie is not among the witnesses who testify here.
Right.
I mean, she would seem to be a central figure in this grand jury probe.
Yeah, think about it. There's Cassie, who you're right, would be a central figure. There are 7 other lawsuits besides Cassie's where people have made allegations. Almost anyone in those lawsuits would be.
They may call all of them.
Would be, yeah.
They may call all of those people.
I mean, as you stated, Harvey, I mean, our law enforcement sources have confirmed that a grand jury has been convened in the case. Witnesses and accusers will be testifying for the grand jury, and other evidence will be presented. Currently, according to our sources, Diddy is being investigated by the feds for sex trafficking, narcotics trafficking, and firearms offenses. As you said, this could all lead to a potential criminal indictment that could send Diddy to prison for a very long time. So these are potentially very serious charges that Diddy faces.
Yep. The question, where are the feds right now in the investigation? What are the chances that this grand jury will hand down an indictment? And what does it mean for Diddy?
Someone who has been through this process as a former federal prosecutor, Andrew CASSIE. He is joining us right now just to talk about what is going on at the Southern District of New York as they prepare for this grand jury. Andrew, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you. And things couldn't be getting worse for Diddy here. I think this is a turn of events that is essentially a nightmare scenario for him. So a lot to unpack here.
Why don't we start with why did the prosecutors choose a grand jury rather than just outright charging him?
Well, a grand jury has an important function in a federal criminal case in essentially a requirement to have this grand jury meet in order to vote to have an indictment on many of these charges. And so they are going to essentially take evidence and through that evidence either decide to indict or return what's called a no bill, which essentially says that there wasn't enough evidence. I have almost never seen a federal prosecutor bring a case to a grand jury and that result in a no bill. So they say that it's as easy as anything that can be done in the law. And when federal prosecutors get themselves involved in a grand jury, the expectation overwhelmingly is that there will be an indictment.
Diddy's team is not there. They don't have any say.
They can't be there.
They're not there, and the grand jurors are kept very secret. But once the indictment, if they go forward, and as you say, they normally do get an indictment, after that is done, what's the next step for them? And do you anticipate, from your knowledge in putting together these cases, Cassie has to be someone that they want to bring in. If not, what reason would they have to not have Cassie sit for the grand jury?
Well, see, so the grand jury itself is technically non-adversarial, although it's highly biased because, like you said, Diddy and his team are not allowed to be there. Now, he is invited generally to make a statement, although that almost never happens. You take your right to remain silent and you keep quiet at the grand jury phase. I would think that anybody who's going to be looked at as a true victim, a named victim in this case, will testify or provide some sort of statement to the grand jury. The one outlying kind of consideration here is that the feds have to bring charges that are federally outlawed as opposed to state offenses. And so in order to do that, they're going to have to draw some sort of connection to an interstate commerce, some sort of human trafficking that went from state to state, some sort of financial crime that crossed state borders, or some sort of gun or drug offense that crossed state borders. So that could limit the victim pool, so to say, to a more narrow group of folks. But I think that's the biggest hurdle the feds are going to have to get over here is making it a federal case as opposed to things like a state case, like what we saw in that domestic violence video with
Well,
CASSIE.
that's what I want to get into right now, because the domestic violence video, the statute of limitations is run on that, but that is squarely a state case, the state of California. That's not going to happen because of the statute. However, what I'm wondering is this. Do you think prosecutors are going to try and show that to grand jurors because it is so incendiary that it would almost make it impossible not to indict him, even though it's a state case? Do you think they're going to try to squeeze that in? Because that is something that's hard to look past.
Well, I think they'll absolutely try to use it both in a grand jury and if this moves forward to a trial in some sort of way. Now, you guys know that a evidence that is not charged, other wrongs, crimes, or acts, are typically not admissible in order to prove the propensity or the penchant for somebody to commit future or past acts. Exactly. But you can use those uncharged acts to prove some sort of larger motive, a modus operandi, or a general intent, a general demeanor in terms of how he may have behaved around certain individuals. So I think that they're going to make strenuous arguments for that to be considered at just about every stage in this case, assuming they have a loop to bring Cassie into this case, remembering, of course, that it has to be a federally based offense, as opposed to the potential that Cassie is excluded from this case because perhaps it was only state-based offenses. That's kind of the big unknown that I have at this point.
Andrew, I don't know if this is too tentative a connection. In that video, she's leaving the hotel. And what we don't know yet, because she didn't even explain this in her lawsuit, why she was fleeing the hotel. She just described the fact that he went after her, but she did say that one of these freak-off sex parties had gone on the night before. Now, that would be something I think the feds would be interested in. So
if there were people that went across state lines.
Right, if there were people that went across state lines, is that a way that they could get that video relevant to the case that they're presenting?
The closer that video and the actions that we see in that video are connected to a charged crime, the more likely that's coming in. And so if you take kind of the word that the night before, within hours of that event, there was one of these freak-offs, we've heard other information that these freak-offs involved prostitutes or involved drugs, potentially even guns being present. Now we start to see that they might be able to draw a connection to a federal crime there. So if he had paid somebody, perhaps flown them in, and that's what we're seeing in some of these other allegations, is that he was flying people from one location to the next in order to commit future acts such as sexual assault or other types of crimes. So they have to draw that video as close as they can to other crimes that are actually charged to give them the greatest possibility to be able to use that.
What if Cassie is, if there is an indictment and Cassie is listed as a unindicted co-conspirator because she may have participated. She was with Diddy for many, many years. She may have participated in some of these alleged crimes, and she might have an immunity deal. I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point to make.
And you basically heard the gist of it from TMZ Live. that ended up getting cut off by mistake. But his answer to that was, it's interesting that they brought that up. But if they ever tried to name Cassie as part of it, being a co-conspirator, because she did admit in her lawsuit that sometimes she looked up the sex workers and she went and booked some of the guys and arranged, for them to come to wherever they were. The lawyer was saying that her defense team would probably say she was compelled to do that because she felt forced because of the situation she was in. She was made to do it or what have you. So that's the defense they would use in that. Okay, very interesting stuff. Diddy looks like he's in a world of trouble, and I don't know whether he still feels as though that, oh, I'm gonna beat this. They don't have enough evidence. It's too far longer. I don't know what he is feeling or thinking right now, but when it got this close, Russell Simmons got the hell out of Dodge, and he ain't coming back. Now, I don't know whether they have by now told him, hey, hang around, stick around, don't try to leave town. But I know they definitely wasn't telling him this a couple of months ago. So we're gonna see what happens. Looks like Diddy's time is about to run out because he's in a world of trouble. It's your boy Heaven Hollywood for the IE Network. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share the video with your friends.